I talked about it, Dave Davis
Yep.
at Barton College. My first job, I walked into the office the first day of work, and I still do this with my guys that I hire now. He sat me down and he said, hey, before we get started, probably the most profound thing anybody did for me, it was the first 5 minutes of my coaching career. He said, before we get started, I want you to know one thing. If you are going to get into this business for something other than the 15 guys that are sitting in that locker room right now, then go do something else. If you're here for fame, if you're here for money, if you're here for winning, he said, if you're here for any of those things, go do something else, because this is not the profession for you. And one of the most influential things anybody ever said to me, and it occurred in the first 5 minutes of my career.
Welcome to Life on the Road,
A coach's journey,
where the stories are real
and the journeys are better.
This is Life on the Road.
Make sure you subscribe, follow, and share with someone in the game. And welcome to another episode of Life on the Road.
I'm Coach Alphonza Key.
I'm Coach Scott Bollwage, and today is it's a special one. Our guest today is Mark Downey, the head coach at Arkansas Tech. He and I go back, it's now 30 years.
30.
That's crazy. I was, we'll get into a story, but I was at Barton College, and he was assistant coach at Barton then. So let's welcome to the podcast, Coach Mark Downey.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me. Excited to be here. It's great to be on with someone I literally started in the business with, That was, man, what a blessing it was to go to Barton College. I know we'll talk about that later, but man, just as a first job, fresh out of college, what a great opportunity it was for me, and to meet so many good people, including yourself, Scott. It was a blessing for sure, but I'm excited to be here. Thank you guys for having me. And, I just want to celebrate the game. Right?
Absolutely. Yep. So we'll get right into it. And first question is always, what made you want to get into coaching? And then where was your first coaching job?
Well, man, I guess, I was a sports medicine undergrad degree. I always tell people now, if you're not sure what you want to do, go into business, right? That's what we're doing anyways as coaches. We're running a business, managing people, managing money, have a budget. The whole deal, marketing, everything. But I had a sports medicine undergrad. My sisters were both in the health profession, one a nurse, one a physical therapist, and that's what I thought I was going to do. But during my senior year at the University of Charleston, playing for Greg White, I actually became the head coach at Marshall later. We were sitting in the stands one day after the season was over, and I was devastated. I tell my players all the time, I tell campers all the time, that I cried probably for a week every day when my career was over in college. And it wasn't the fact that I wasn't going to put the uniform on again. It wasn't the fact I was going to play in front of people or the referees or the lights or whatever. It was the fact that I knew I had to wake up the next day, and I didn't have to go to the weight room. I didn't have to get shots. I didn't have to find a pickup game. I didn't have to get a workout in. And for 15 years of my life, that's what it was all about. It was about, getting that workout in every day. It was about that love, that passion that, drove me. And man, when it was over, it was devastating that I did not have to get up the next day and go find a gym or go find, someone to get shots with or whatever it may be. In the driveway, simply in the driveway of my house. I'd always done that. I was kind of heartbroken. And then, the next 2 weeks were hard, but I was sitting in the arena. We had an AAU tournament going on, state AAU tournament going on in our arena. And my boss not my boss, he eventually became my boss. My coach was sitting 2 rows behind me, and he just said, "Hey, Mark, what do you think about," I don't even remember the number, but what do you think about number 12 right there? And I was, told him my evaluation, and he goes, "Well, this is what you're going to be doing the rest of your life. So I wanted to see how good you were at it." And I looked at him like, "No, coach, I just went through 1,500 volunteer hours for sports medicine, and I'm going into the medical profession." And he goes, No, you're not. He said, "You're going to be coaching." So I went back to my dorm room and, thought about it for a while, and I was still heartbroken. I didn't have basketball anymore. And a week later, I was sending letters, because that was right as email was coming out. That's how old we are, Scott.
Yep.
Emails.
We were sending letters, physical letters, to every Division I and Division II program in the country, and we did have mail merge back then, so I could mail merge it. Send it to everybody in the country, every Division I, Division II, some Division III, some NAIA schools, and just trying to get in the door, get a job. And so then I got 2 offers. I got a GA at Fair State, and I went down to Barton College and Dave Davis. And to this day, like I told you, it's a blessing. To this day, my biggest mentor in the business is Dave Davis, the head coach at Barton, later went to Pfeiffer and then Newberry, and then spent time at Winthrop, and ended up College of Charleston, and then finished at VMI as an assistant. Now he's with Nations of Coaches, which we can talk about that later. It's a really
awesome.
great organization. And, I've just had 2 meals with him at the Final Four, and we still talk about every couple weeks. We're on a prayer group together on Monday mornings with a bunch of coaches. And Dave Davis was, man, what a blessing he was in my life. Just made a huge difference in my coaching life and still does to this day. Met a lot of other great people there as well. And but it was a blessing to end up at Barton College and be there for a year. It really was. Dave brought a lot to my life and still does to this day.
That's great. And so we spend a year at Barton. Where do we go after Barton?
Well, my head coach at Charleston gets the Marshall job. He went the year I went to Barton. He left Charleston in West Virginia and went to UCLA. With Coach Herrick, fresh off a national title. Spent a year there at UCLA and gets the Marshall job. So I end up going to Marshall. I was it's funny because back then you had 2 assistants, a part-time assistant, and basically a GA, or what they called me, an administrative assistant. So I was what now is called the director of basketball operations, the graduate assistant, the film guy, the camp guy, you name it. I did it all. Right. And that was a blessing too, because I was the only one. I mean, we kind of had other guys come in as GAs here and there, but man, I was given so much responsibility when I was at Marshall. The people that were at Marshall in that time frame is a who's who. Like Coach White and our staff, we took over for Billy Donovan. So
that guy
Pelfrey was an assistant. Donnie Jones was the assistant. Pelfrey, Anthony Grant. Those were the 3 assistants at Marshall that went to Florida with Billy Donovan before we got there. Well, then we get there, and I'm the GA. Greg Marshall is the top assistant. Steve Snell, who's back at Marshall, but just went to the Final Four with NC State. And then Brian Poore was an assistant who's the head coach at West Virginia State. So I was a GA on that staff and got so much. I mean, I learned about what the business was with that group. They came in behind us. We all left 2 years later, and Greg Marshall goes to Winthrop as the head coach.
That's great.
Kevin Keats comes in as the assistant. Jeff Bowles at Ohio comes in as the assistant. So the people that were at Marshall in that 5-year span, man, I was listening to Coach Christian's deal with you this morning, his podcast, and when he came on, he was talking about the group that, came out of hit with a coach that he played for, Coach Williams. But, I think about the people that were at Marshall in that 5-year span, and wow, what a group that was too. So it's funny because Roger Adams was our character coach. Back then they called it a chaplain, but he was our chaplain back then. And the people that he has been able to mentor as a chaplain at Marshall University, Donnie Jones came back as the head coach. And I mean, just so many different people. He goes to the Final Four, and he doesn't have time to eat dinner with everybody because there's so many people that he's mentored throughout his time as a chaplain. So pretty neat time at Marshall, and I was given so much responsibility. I can remember I was the film guy. I broke down every scout. Greg Marshall would call me into his office and say, watch this film with me. What do you think about Miami of Ohio? And shoot, Wally Zerbiak was playing. The MAC back then was loaded. I mean, loaded. Gary Trent at Ohio. Ken was playing at Miami at Eastern Michigan. Ball State had Bonzi Wells. I mean, It was loaded. Bowling Green had what's his name that played in the NBA as well. Escaping my name right now, but almost every team in the MAC had an NBA player. We had just recruited Tamar Slay, who ended up playing in the NBA for 6 or 7 years, but just given so much. I mean, another great thing about Marshall at that time is watching Chad Pennington and Randy Moss hook up on the football field. So
special time, Coach. You've been in special time.
The glory days of Marshall University. Just it was neat to be around Marshall, and I had so much responsibility, and I didn't even know it. Was working, 7 or 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. every night, and it was great. Some of the best times. Those 3 years at Barton and Marshall were some of the best times I've in my coaching career. Making no money, just having a good time, basketball and business, and going to school. I got a master's degree from Marshall as well. So good time.
I think people don't understand getting nowadays working for free.
Yeah, they don't. There's none of it. Nobody wants to do it. And I get it. The thing I find with our players more now than anything is just the fact that they got to have money in their pocket. Like they are absolutely miserable if they don't have a dime in their pocket. Like I tell our guys all the time, like when I was in college, we were broke. I mean, we were eating mac and cheese and ramen noodles.
Absolutely.
Like we were broke and it was the best time of my life. We loved it.
You say that, I always felt I was working for not free for opportunity.
Yeah.
I always felt that it was going to come back to me, just a matter of when, not immediately. But my first year starting out, I just wanted to learn, experience, because I felt opportunity will result later on in monetary and opportunity as well to be a coach
No
at a
doubt.
higher level, second assistant, first assistant head coach. But I never thought it was free and felt anyone owed me anything.
Right, right. And even as a player, I mean, I don't remember worrying about it. I don't remember worrying about not having any money. You know, you just kind of figured it out. And that's another thing I think that guys today lack because of the convenience that we live in, but just the problem solving. You know, guys that are able to problem solve. And again, that's winning, right?
Yeah.
That's how we win in life. You figure it out, you problem solve. And I
Each
think
possession.
we've lost it.
Yeah.
This society has a hard time problem solving. So, you know, I guess that's my job, right? That's one of the things I got to do.
Part of the growth process. So
Yeah,
after Marshall, where do we go after Marshall?
Well, I thought I was going back to Dave Davis or going to work for Coach Marshall at Winthrop.
Okay.
But I even interviewed Coach Herrick, had moved on to Rhode Island. So really, I thought I was going to Rhode Island. I interviewed with Coach Herrick at Greg White's house. But I was actually working camp at Pfeiffer with Dave Davis, who had moved to Pfeiffer, and he had offered me a job, and I went down to work camp, and I remember getting the call from Coach Herrick that they have allowed him to hire his son. So when they allowed him to hire his son, I was out.
Okay.
I was out. So
Coach was
tough. It's tough because I thought I was going to get that big opportunity right off the bat, you know.
You would have beat everybody in the country, Coach, but I don't think you would have beat someone's son. Yeah, everybody else might have came in number 2 that time. Runner up.
Coach Herrick was gracious about it. I just saw Coach Herrick at the Final Four, and he's always great. Still sharp, still really sharp. He's a West Virginia guy where I'm from. So
I didn't know that.
He went to Morris Harvey, which is now the University of Charleston. So you know, that's kind of how him and Coach White had hooked up and become really close friends. And so I thought I was going back to Pfeiffer, going back with Dave Davis. And then I get a call from Greg Marshall. And Greg, he had talked to me about his third spot, but it was a volunteer spot. And, you know, I was thinking about taking it, but hadn't decided. But he hit me and he said, hey, I interviewed a guy that I thought I was going to hire, but I didn't. He didn't take the job. He was the head coach at Kirkwood Community College, coming off a national title in Division II JUCO. And he had just got the Independence Community College job in Kansas. His name is Chris Jans.
Okay.
So, you know, Coach White, I called him, and Coach is like, hey, if you want to go to Kansas, I will fly you out there for the interview. Well, he booked a flight for me, and I flew out to meet Chris, and, you know, that's what happened. I went with Chris Jans to Independence Community College, and, man, talk about another mentor. That Coach Jans, I've worked for him twice now, and it was great. I went out there and was thrown to the wolves, man. If you've never recruited in the JUCO conference, even back then, you don't really have to do it as much anymore. It's still tough. But back then, there were 19 junior colleges in our league, and you could only have 6 out-of-staters on your roster.
You won JUCO, high level, yes.
But Kansas was still really, really good. Well, in Kansas, it's a decent state for basketball, but when there's 19 JUCOs, a few Division IIs, a bunch of NAIAs, and then, you know, three Division Is all vying for the same kids.
Wow.
There's not a lot to pick from. So I cut my teeth recruiting in Kansas.
Well, you're fighting.
19 JUCOs, there were about 10 players that you were all fighting for. So every Tuesday and Friday, you were on the road to Kansas City, to Wichita. You were there with 9 or 10 other assistants or head coaches from the Jayhawk. You were trying to figure out where you were going to be in line at the end of the game.
Yes.
Where you were going to stand, where you were going to sit. I mean, it was all part of it. What logo you were going to wear so they could, you know, all of that. Who you're going to try to bump while you were there, his mom, his dad, might sit by him, everything. I mean, it was just, that's where you cut your teeth. The reason I think we were successful is because we did a really good job of recruiting in-state guys that were impact guys and could play. So we won a lot, but then 8 months after I took the job and learned so much from Chris, he took an assistant job at the University of Idaho. And, man, I was 26 years old. I had no idea. I was green. I had no idea. But the AD walked in and said, hey, man, act like you're the head coach.
Half the battle.
Yeah, if you act like you're the head coach for the next 2 weeks, you might end up getting this job. And Darren Brunson, the AD at the time, hired me and gave me the job. So I was the youngest head coach in the JUCO conference and the history of the school. And by the time the season started, I was 27, but was 2 years the head coach there. We won the region for the first time in a long time and went to Hutch. Okay. That was in the year, that was 99, 2000. Independence has never been back to Hutch since then.
Wow.
So 26 years later, we were the last team to do it. The next year, I thought we had a better team and lost in the finals. Yeah, lost in the finals to Barton. And back then, we beat Barton the year before. They were number 1 in the country, and we beat them in the region final to go to Hutch. The next year, I thought we were better, and they beat us in the final and went to Hutch. There was no at-large bids. You had to win the region. It was like the old NCAA tournament, man. You had to win the ACC to go to the NCAA tournament. So, but, had great success there, won 25 or so games both years, and then I left there to go be an assistant at the University of New Orleans for 5 years. Worked for a legend, Monty Tao, NC State legend.
Legend, point guard, general.
Invented the oop, or at least he says he does.
That's all that counts.
But he had David Thompson.
Yeah.
To throw it to, and Steve Burleson, or Scott Burleson, I don't remember his name. But threw the oop to those guys, 7'3", and one of the best athletes to ever play the game. But Monty was great, man. I learned a lot from Monty. It's just one of the best in-game coaches I've ever been around. Like he just knew what was going on in every situation. And he, if you suggested something and he told you no, he'd tell you why. The explanation right there. So he was great. Learned a ton from him in 5 years. And, some things happened to me while I was there, being a 30-something, young 30-year-old in New Orleans, single.
Yeah.
Not healthy.
Yeah.
Not healthy.
Yeah.
It was easy to find trouble if you wanted to.
It found you.
Yeah, it really did.
Every corner. Yeah.
It was easy.
Let me ask you a quick question on the JUCO because, I played, I understand, there's Division 1, 2, and 3. And when you talk about the Jayhawk League in Kansas, that is what is equal to a Power 5 Division 1. I don't think people understand the caliber of competition in that JUCO league, the caliber of players that signed. Some guys, have played mid-Division 1 as a freshman at the 4-year level and transfer back. But if you can't just talk about just how competitive Division 1 Jayhawk League is and where those guys end up going.
Yeah, I mean, it's changed a little bit. I think it could go back. I think JUCO could get pretty big here, especially if they almost count it like a prep. If they don't count the years where it looks like it may be heading. And if that happens, I think prep school might go away a little bit.
Right.
Because now you can go to JUCO and it doesn't count, but you get college credits. So by the time you would go JUCO and then move on to Division 1, you might have a graduate degree with all the credits that you had. Play a lot longer, or Division 2, whatever it may be. But it's still great. I just went to Hutch, a few weeks ago and watched a national tournament, and still pretty good. There's still plenty of Division 1 players in it. But just giving you an idea of what we were going against. And when I was there, people said it wasn't as good as it was before. But when we beat Barton College in the championship, my first year at Independence in year 2000, they had Jamal Davis went to Cincinnati and played for Hugs. I can't remember all the names, but they had a big that had transferred from West Virginia and ended up going to UMass. They had a point guard that was as good as any point guard I've ever coached against. They ended up at UAB. They had a 2-guard, Fred Primus, go to East Carolina. They had another wing that came off the bench that went to UMKC. They had Ebby Erie as a freshman who ended up going to Oklahoma and being all Big 10 or Big 12 back in the day. He was a freshman on that team. Then they had another kid by the name of Udi Baker from Chicago that never went anywhere because he was a little bit crazy. Yeah. But he was their most talented
player off a Division 1 roster.
Other guys go Division 2.
Yeah.
So that was one team back in the day that you don't quite see that anymore. Our team had 6 Division 1 players, but they were all mid-level guys. South Alabama, a couple guys went to Idaho. Yeah, we had one guy went to Appalachian State. We had a bunch of guys that were good, bunch of D2 guys too.
That's high-level talent.
Yeah, and now you see in the JUCO ranks, it depends on, there's some, but you usually get 2 or 3 that go D1 and then 2 or 3 that go D2, and then that's about it. But man, back in the day, it was really good, and it's still really good. And there's guys going to every level out of the Jayhawk. It's a special place, and to coach there really early in my career, again, another blessing. Especially being able to work for Coach Jans.
And I say that, I guess I make that point because different parts of the country, regions, this understanding, like Midwest, real heavy, Florida, but some people have no idea there's Division 1, 2, and 3. Certain parts, the Panhandle, the Jayhawk, their levels are extremely talented. So it's just like you said, the makeup of the state of Kansas. I played junior college in Colorado, Division 1 Lamar Colorado. Okay. So I'm coming from California to North Carolina. So I'm in Colorado. So our first road trip, I don't understand. We play Odessa, play Midland, then we go to Garden City, go to Hutch. And I'm like, these guys are like, this is not what I thought community college was. And we're talking about high level pros. Larry Johnson went to school at Odessa. So I just wanted to talk about that because depending where you're from, you understand the different levels of junior college basketball.
Yeah, we sold the heck out of NBA players at Independence. I mean, we had Reuben Patterson played there, Harvey Grant played there, Armin Gilliam played there.
Yeah, you want to be.
So that was just in the past 20 years when I was there in 2000. So we sold that like crazy. NBA players were coming out of JUCO programs all over the country.
Absolutely.
E.B. Francis. I mean, really good ones. That whole UNLV group played JUCO.
Larry Johnson.
Yeah.
Sure did.
Yeah.
So you were at New Orleans for 5 years, was that correct?
5 years, yeah.
Right. So after New Orleans, where's our next stop?
We had a manager actually that came from Garden City. Henry Cox was a head coach at Garden City, and he told us about a kid we should hire as a manager because he wanted to coach college basketball. His name was Wes Corkins, and he had left after a couple years. His second year with us, he lived with me. He was a roommate. I was the young guy on the staff and had a 2-bedroom place, and he lived with me. So we got to be really close, and he went to a place called Arkansas Tech after he left New Orleans as a GA. And I was still at New Orleans, and he called me and he said, "Man, you always talk about being a head coach and being at a Division II school." He goes, "This place is it's a hidden gem." So kind of kept that in my back pocket. And he said, "Man, if this thing ever opens, I've connected with the right people. I can help you." So he was there for a year and then left and went to Kilgore Community College.
Mm-hmm.
And was at Kilgore for a year, and the Tech job opened. And he calls me back and he says, "Hey, I can help you get this." And I interviewed with Steve Mullins, the AD at the time. And, luckily I left, and then Monty Towle left to go to NC State like 2 weeks later. So it's kind of good that I left. But we had just gone through Katrina, and, I was ready to move on, and it was time. And, got the job at Tech, and they had never won a Division II conference tournament game. They had been Division II for about 15 years and just hadn't had a lot of success. And man, I was really, really green again my first year. And we, kept a lot of guys on the roster from the previous staff, and then tried to bring in some of my own guys. And we just weren't very good. I was just feeling my way. I think we won 6 or 7 games. We had a kid, Terrence Whiters, that was really, really good from Baltimore. That's a crazy story. Again, I was really green. I literally went to court with him, and the judge looked at me and said, "All right." He was at Towson playing, and he got in trouble. And it was kind of a weird deal that he got in trouble. And he did some dumb things, but he was kind of the bad end of the stick. And I went to court with him and his attorney, and the judge said, "So you're telling me that you can get him out of Baltimore and take him to Kansas and get him a college education?" And I said, "Yeah, that's the goal." And he said, "Okay, well, here's the deal. You are now his probation officer. If he does anything to get in trouble, you better call me or you will get in trouble."
The coach.
So all right, and grabbed Terrence Whiters and brought him to Arkansas Tech. Well, that first year, we had won 2 games in a row right at Christmas, and we thought, okay, here we go. And we're playing that third game after Christmas to go 3 in a row. We're starting to click, and he separates his shoulder, and he's out for the season. And I think we won 1 conference game without him. Man, he ended up playing 3 years for the New York Knicks Summer League team. I mean, he was a dude. But I say he was shot and killed probably about 8 or 9 years ago back in Baltimore. And it was a sad story, but played overseas for a long time and was a really good player. But came to Tech and just kind of feeling through it. Our second year, we won 18 games, won our first conference tournament game ever, had a pretty good team. We had a group that we brought in that first year as freshmen that had become sophomores. And then the next year, we won 26, I think. We won our conference tournament. We went to the NCAA tournament. These are all firsts ever at Tech. We won our first NCAA tournament game. We lose in overtime to the host school, Florida Southern, and had a really good team. One of the best teams I've ever coached as a head coach. And then, the next year we started the year, again, I thought our year before we were better. I thought as a team we were better. But that fourth year we started 25-0. I had no idea that team would do that. We went to Centenary. They were just before they went back D3. It was their last year of Division I.
Okay.
And they were they were decent. They were good. They weren't great. Greg Gary was the head coach there, who became the coach at Mercer and has been in college basketball for a long time. Good coach. We went down there and got smoked, and we scrimmaged them. We did an exhibition. We scrimmaged them so we could play 4 or 5 quarters and do all this. And
right.
they smoked us. And I remember my cousin was on the staff. He's now at Youngstown State, but he was on the staff. And I remember going to dinner with him afterwards and like, we suck. We're not going to win a game. Like, we're awful. And, next thing you know, we kind of get things straight. We scrimmaged Cameron University, neutral site, kind of scrimmaged them and kind of wiped them out pretty good. And then won 25 games in a row.
Yeah,
and,
you got them straight all right. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, we won 7. We spent 7 or 8 weeks as number 1 team in the country. And
it's hard to do.
Finished 30-2 that year. We won the league. We won the tournament. We hosted the first 3 rounds of the NCAA tournament. And Valdosta State, who was also loaded, Mike Helfer's still there. He's a great coach, been doing it for a long time. He had one of the best Division II teams I've ever seen, and we beat them in the conference tournament. I mean, they were loaded.
Yeah, you guys were too.
Division II players like they had that year. They were loaded. And we were commenting about that this year. I was like, we were at the national championship game in Indy and watching that Division II game. And I said, man, I don't see a Tyrone Crenell out there on the court to Mike Helfer because that kid was special. But they beat us. That's the thing about D2. We beat them in the conference tournament, and then 7-8 days later, we're playing them in the second round. They were preseason like 4th in the country. And when we played them in the NCAA tournament, we were 1st and they were 9th in the country in the second round of the NCAA.
That. Yeah, that's some crazy seeding.
Yeah. And they beat us on our home floor. They shot the mess out of it. And just one of those nights we couldn't get over the hump. But just an unbelievable year, and 30-2, and we kind of flipped it here. So and that was my last year here the first time, which was in 2010.
Okay. So then so obviously you have a hot name in the business.
Kind of. Yeah. We've been winning.
Right.
We've been winning everywhere we've been. And
that'll do it, Coach.
Yeah. Kind of. I heard someone say something the other day. They called somebody the carpenter. Because that's what they kind of do, is they kind of make losers winners. They kind of, and that's kind of who I kind of become, the MO of what I was doing. And so what happened was Charleston called my boss at Marshall, who was my college basketball coach, spent 6 or 7 years at Marshall, and then his wife was a doctor in Charleston. They never moved. They stayed in Charleston, West Virginia. Marshall was about 35, 40 miles down the road. He commuted every day. Well, he got sick of it. And he got sick of the Division I lifestyle, and he didn't really need money. So Charleston opened, and he decided to go back to a Division II head coach. He went back for 3 or 4 years, and then he was like, I'm done. I just don't want to coach anymore. So he hung it up. So he and the president, who was the same president when I was a student there, graduated in 95, they called me, and they said, hey, we want you to do at Charleston what you did at Arkansas Tech. We want you to flip this thing into, we're going to use it. It's a smaller private school. They wanted to use men's basketball as a billboard.
Okay.
And if you can do what you did for us at Tech, we think we can help enrollment. We think we can, get people excited about our university. And so they promised me kind of the world. They, you're going to get this, you can get this, we're going to pay you this, we're going to do this. And, I really don't live in regret. I don't do that. And the reason I don't do it is because of all the relationships that I've made since then. But career-wise, we had it rolling here at Tech. And my assistant took over after I left and went back to Charleston and went to 4 straight NCAA tournaments. So they went to 6 in a row. Well, then he left and got at Central Missouri, a better D2 job. And his assistant took over and went to 2 out of 3 years in a row. So Tech never been to the NCAA tournament, but went 8 out of 9 years.
Wow.
And, if I would have stayed and done that, some big things probably would have happened for me. But it's still, like I said, I don't live in regret. But I went to Charleston, and I had just gotten married. We picked up and moved, and we had great success there too. I think the first year we were a little bit above 500. The next year we won 26 or 27 games, and lost to West Liberty in the conference title championship. Smart coach didn't foul up 3 with 9 seconds to go, and they beat us in overtime.
It was a long game.
I foul now. I found out, but they hit a 40-footer to tie it and send it to OT. I went in the huddle and said, we're up 3 with 9 seconds to go, side out of bounds. What do you guys want to do? And, I'm a defensive rebounding guy. So they were in the huddle like, we're going to guard them. We're going to guard them. And, it gets me excited. So I was like,
yeah.
all right, we're going to guard them. And wow, we actually had a 4-point lead in overtime and didn't take care of that either. And they beat us in OT. So, had a great year that second year. And then the third year, we started off really, really good. We went, I think, the 13th in the country or something like that. And we played West Lib again at home, and they were number 1, and we beat them. And it was almost the same situation.
That's a great win.
12 seconds left. They had the ball full court. We were up 3, and we fouled. And we won. So same situation the next year.
Well, at least you learned.
Yeah. And it just,
that's a quick turnaround, course correction.
Yeah. But I've been beat and not fouling. I've been, I've never been beat fouling. I never have. So at this point, I will foul. I will foul from here on out. But anyways, things changed at Charleston. My athletic director got cancer and died pretty quickly. He was the baseball coach when I was there playing. So some things had just changed. I had a couple kids get in trouble, just do some dumb stuff, got in a fight downtown. Charleston's a pretty big city for West Virginia. It's the capital. And it became a big deal. And I thought we weathered it. I really did. I thought, we had some good players coming back. Recruiting was going really well. And just got to the point where they hired a lady there that used to be the volleyball coach. And I got along with her. Everything was great. But it just got to the point where I didn't feel very secure. I didn't feel like I felt like if we had one thing happen, that maybe they would go another direction. So a buddy of mine that knew, or a guy, my old AD at Arkansas Tech knew the AD at West Alabama, and they had just had an opening for a head coach. And Northwest Florida was actually open as well, JUCO in the Panhandle.
Yes.
And Steve Forbes was in that job, and I know Steve really well. Him and Jans are tight, and I know Steve really well. So then the women's coach there at the time was Patrick Harrington, and he was on our staff at New Orleans. So that job was open. So they were interviewing Steve DeMeo, who's there again in his second stint at Northwest Florida. They were interviewing him because he had come down with Coach Forbes and had been an assistant for like the last 2 or 3 months. Coach Forbes leaves and goes to Wichita State, as a matter of fact, and as an assistant. I called Steve, and he's like, man, I wish I knew you wanted this job because I would have got it done for you. Patrick Harrington was saying the same thing. Steve DeMeo was interviewing. Both Forbes and Harrington said, get in your car and drive down. He said, that's the only way you can get this job. If you get in the car. So we're driving down there. My wife and I and my kids or my son are driving down, and my stepson, my other one, he was with us. He had just been born. And we're driving down there, and I get a call from Northwest Florida, the AD, and he's like, Mark, we were just too far down the road. We're going to hire Steve DeMeo. So we're halfway down there. We're like in Alabama, more than halfway down there.
Wow.
Like 20 minutes later, the AD at West Alabama calls me and says, hey, Mark, we would love to interview you. You think you'd come for an interview? I said, yeah, how about tomorrow? He goes, you can get here by tomorrow? I said, I'm like an hour away. Like, are you kidding me? I'm like, no, an hour away. I can be there tomorrow. He goes, great. So I went over and interviewed there at West Alabama, and they offered me the job on the spot. And, we just felt like it was something we needed to do for job security and things like that. And dude, now we went to West Alabama and inherited a good team, but brought 2 or 3 guys with us that we were going to bring to Charleston. Charleston, by the way, the team that we had there won the league the next year. So the team that we had won the league. Well, we go to West Alabama and have a really good year. We beat the Citadel and Abilene Christian that year, 2 Division I's.
Yeah.
In a tournament in Towson, Maryland. We were actually in the battle for Atlantis. Somehow we got in that. And then we finished.
Somehow.
Yeah, we played USC and UTEP at their place, and UTEP beat us pretty good, but we had the ball down 6 at the last media timeout at USC. It was Andy Enfield's first year, and we had the ball and ran a play and got our best shooter a 3, and he missed it. We ended up losing by 11, but, if we make that 3, it's 3:30 to go, down 3, you never know. But we ended up finishing second in our league that year to a really good Delta team and qualified for the NCAA tournament, and that was the first time that had happened at West Alabama in 32 years. So we had success there. And then when that ended, worked for a great guy. He's now the AD at Houston Christian. He just got the job. Stan Williamson, just an unbelievable man. Blessed to be work for him for as long as I did. And then I spent 1 year there because Christian's got the Bowling Green job, and he called me and said, let's run this thing back. He said, Bowling Green's a great place. We're going to win. We've got plenty of money there. And you'll be sitting there to be the next head coach at Bowling Green. So I rounded up the family again, and we went north. And we did have a good year. We won 21 games. Rashawn Holmes was on our team, who got drafted and played in the NBA for 8 years. This is the first year he hasn't. He's playing overseas, making millions. And then, well, actually, the day the season ended, we played in the CIT or the CBI. I don't know which one it was. And Jans and some of the staff went out to a bar, and the game was over early. We played at like noon, and the game was over. And me and Dave Ragland, now the head coach at Evansville, we go recruiting, and we're probably the two more mature assistants on the staff. And those guys all go out, like all 8 of them, other than us 2, go out, and they drink all day. And there was nobody in the room that wasn't drinking. And Jans got a little bit drunk and did some dumb stuff. And we ended up getting fired because of it.
Wow.
So at the same time, I was interviewing for the Little Rock job the same time that Chris Beard did. And it actually came down to between us and Chris Beard. To me and Chris Beard. And, obviously they made the right hire. They hired Chris, but I interviewed on a Monday and Tuesday, got back to campus on a Tuesday night, and I found out Wednesday that something was going on. I had no idea that this incident had happened in a bar.
Wow.
I was gone. And Coach had everybody kind of shut up about it. And I get a call. We're leaving for the Final Four, literally going to the Final Four in Indianapolis, 2 hours down the road on Thursday morning. And my AD calls and says, "Hey, Mark, I need you to come to my office." And I'm like, the AD's calling an assistant to come to the office. I'm like, "What for?" He's like, "We're making a change in the leadership of men's basketball." And I'm like, "What kind of change?" And he goes, "The change." And right there, I knew, like, Little Rock's out. I'm not getting the Little Rock job. He made me the interim coach at Bowling Green for I was probably a month and a half. I was maybe not that long, maybe a month. I was the interim coach. And again, he told me to act like the head coach. So I did. The staff kind of jumped behind me, and I still tried to get Little Rock, but unfortunately didn't. A couple of days later, they hired Chris Beard, which was, it's a pretty good hire. I think they won 32 games the year Chris Beard was at Little Rock.
Wow.
Not too bad.
Not too bad. It was loaded, though. We knew it was loaded too. Everybody on our staff knew that it was a good job, but Chris did a phenomenal job.
Mhm.
And then didn't get the Bowling Green job. So I was unemployed for about 3 months. I went from thinking I was going to be a Division I head coach to not having a job, and kind of had a scarlet letter.
Right.
I interviewed, I think, for 6 Division II jobs that summer. And like you said, we had done nothing but win on the Division II level.
Right.
We won at we won at Independence, we won at Arkansas Tech, we won at Charleston, and we had run at West Alabama. And then we had won just at Bowling Green. We had won 21 games that year. I'm sitting there like, why can't I get a job? But I had a scarlet letter. No one wanted to touch a Jan's assistant at that time. And then, it just, Bobby Huggins is a mentor of mine, and he didn't always, at that time, he had, gone through the Cincinnati stuff and had the DUIs and just, those guys were on my resume.
Yeah.
Right.
Guys are really good coaches, right?
Yeah. Great coaches.
But I just couldn't get a job. And then John Kaufman actually Zach Spiker, the head coach at Drexel, grew up in my hometown. Was actually one of my best friends in high school. Was his older brother. And what's crazy is he played at Purdue his first 2 years with Matt Painter.
Right.
So connecting the dots, he took over at Barton College.
Wow.
For Matt Painter.
That
was
right.
Matt Painter's first job as well the year before I got there. So I took over for him and became close with Matt. And
good place.
Yeah, it was a pretty good place to be. Zach had called, was talking to John Kaufman on the road in July. I don't have a job, and Kaufman needed an assistant. Zach was like, "Hey, Mark Downey's out there." John didn't know me, but I drove over to Fort Wayne and interviewed with John, and he's a real offensive guy, and he wanted a defensive guy that had some experience and been a head coach in that spot. So he hired me, and the next 2 years I spent there and learned a lot. John's got a fantastic offensive mind, and we won a lot of games. Won the league our first year there. I think we won 24 games. Won the regular season. We had a kid by the name of Max Landis that could shoot the mess out of it and went to Germany and played for a long time. And also had a kid by the name of John Conchar, who's played in the league for, I think, 6 or 7 years now. Just got traded from Memphis to the Utah Jazz. Had a triple-double couple weeks ago. So, we had a lot of success there, but it got to the point I really wanted to be a head coach again. So left there and went to Northeastern State in Oklahoma.
Okay.
Larry Gibson was there as the head coach at one point, and he's retired and lives there now and still is a major part of what they do over there.
Mm-hmm.
Another great basketball mind. One of only 2 guys to win a national championship at the 4-year level and the 2-year level.
Yeah, that's
him and Nolan Richardson. That's pretty good company.
Yes.
So I went to work there, moved my family again. We're there for 3 years, and we loved Tahlequah, Oklahoma, small town in northeast Oklahoma. But then Arkansas Tech opened. And, that's where I met my wife. We are since divorced, but that's where my stepson's father was. It's where we had a ton of success, and we just decided she was starting to make it in her business.
Yeah.
Our kids were getting a little bit older, and we kind of made a deal that, hey, let's go back to Arkansas. Let's call it. This is it. I'm gonna be a D2 head coach.
Yeah.
Call the shots, and her business was gonna take off, and it has. It's really taken off for her.
Because I just wanted to ask you something in between that. One thing I've saw consistently is winning in first at all those levels. You back up just a little bit as assistant coach. A question we like to ask all our guests. Besides your defensive roles, your recruiting, and some of the stuff you had on as staff, is there anything that you did that you said to yourself that was not in my job description? For example, I know worked with Coach Bollwage, and he was a national season off tee time finder for our head coach. Every city, and I was a long distance driver. I drove state. So if there's anything that you could recall that you did as an assistant that you said one night, man, that was not in the job description.
Yeah, I was the designated driver plenty of nights. That wasn't in the job description, but I think probably the days like at Independence, working for Jans, we're trying to win in-state kids and just doing some of the things that we did, trying to win kids over and show kids that we wanted to be, that we wanted them so bad. Like we were going to birthday parties, not even for the kid, like the kid's little sister, obviously like going to other graduations. We were going to football games. The kid played football games. We're showing up at football games on a Friday night in October or November. And yeah, I mean, just doing stuff like that nonstop in Kansas. I think when we look back to that, that is it. I mean, when I was the GA at Marshall, again, I'm the special assistant to the head coach. I'm the film guy. I'm the, everything that all those people do now.
All in one.
All that stuff. You were trying to get, I was getting guys laundries. I was washing their car.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, I was doing all the video, and we were doing, 6 videos stacked on top of each other.
Yep.
I was just
I think the
about
one
to ask
thing that I didn't, I don't think that people understand what film exchange was about in the 90s and even the early 2000s. Like one instance I can remember, I was at Marshall and I had all these video, you're sending a letter that says, hey, will you give us this video? And they send a letter back. It says, yes, we'll give you this video.
On this date.
Then you turn around and send them a blank VHS video with a FedEx thing in there, and then they've got to put it in the FedEx and send it back. Well, this is my first year really doing Division I film exchange, and I realized that like December 13th, school closes.
Break.
That's where all the mail was coming to.
Yes.
So I'm like, okay, all these videos are coming in. We've got games throughout the holidays, and the mailroom's not going to open up until January 10th.
Oh, exactly.
So I was at the airport going through bins at the airport, like throwing things out, looking for videotapes. And I had to do it almost every day. And the airport in Huntington wasn't really close. Like it was a good 25-minute drive from the arena. And every night I was up there. Now, the next year, anything that came in December and early January, I put my home address on it.
Yes.
But that first year, I didn't even realize it. That first year, you're like, I'm just getting all this done. There's so much to get done. And you just sent the FedEx that had this, it was already typed on there. They already had it typed on there. Henderson Center, whatever. I should probably remember the address as many times as I did it. But I can't exactly remember. I think it was 4th Street. Man, talk about flipping out. Talk about, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? I'm not going to have a video for Appalachian State. Or I'm not going to have a video for our first conference game. And then that happens too. I can't tell you how many of those 2 years I had to get in the car at the beginning of the season and drive to Gardner Webb to pick up a tape. And we weren't even allowed to walk in there and watch the game.
Oh, not there.
Right.
Coach Downey, I tell you this, I had one, I think Marshall. A guy agreed to send the tape. It took forever. It wasn't coming. When it finally came, I'm getting chewed out. Was broke.
Yeah, that happened to me plenty of times.
Guess what? We found a way to retape, figured it out, put it in our head coach's office. I have a variety of just massive, scary moments of waiting for that film. I don't return the call on time. It was unbelievable. At one in Morgan, we were going from Marshall to West Virginia. and we had it sent. It was my scout. Had it sent to the hotel.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the team bus going to the hotel, sprint the front desk?
Yeah.
I'm like, ma'am, do you have a tape from so-and-so? It's like, I don't think so. Please check again. Look, go in the back.
Yeah.
And I'm over the counter, go back. Oh, yes, we do have one coming from Marketing. But yeah, I could definitely relate to that stress back then, that film exchange.
Coaches nowadays don't understand that stress of that.
Traveling. Hated the road. Please had it.
Where every FedEx box was in your town, what time they left.
That apartment, home address.
Yeah, all the time. You knew all those drop-offs were. And there were times I was chasing the FedEx truck down the street because I missed him by 5 minutes and I saw him. And I'm like trying to run him down. Like, hey, I got one more.
PTSD.
Tonight. Yeah, it's nuts. And that happened all the way through New Orleans time. When I was in New Orleans, I was doing it too. So,
what's amazing is they allowed you to go into the post office and check the mail.
Yeah. I was literally at the airport, at the FedEx place and going through their bins. Yeah. I begged and pleaded. I'm like, I got to do this. I got to do it. And I don't know who it was, but they let me in every time.
Wow.
Every time.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's crazy. Back in the day, man, people coming into the business now. And guess what? Wasn't making any money.
Your own gas. Hey, man, can you please meet me in Atlanta? Need me 3 hours away. I need that tape for Monday's game. You just driving like no big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
Well, we're going to keep this going. And Coach Key's got the next segment for us, which is Hoops took me here and Hoops took me there.
And again, we love for all our guests because our stories are so unique. And we like to say this, very, nicely and politically, but, we like to say, here is the nicest, your favorite, beautiful place that basketball is taking you. One, and then also within that same question, I want to ask you, what would be the most unique, favorite place that basketball has taken you? Start with your favorite.
I mean, I think more for me, it's been about experiences, the new things I've been able to do. But as far as just the places, 2 times in New Orleans, 2 years back to back, we got to go to Hawaii for it was a tournament they used to have. It wasn't the Diamond Head Classic. I think we did play 1 year in the Diamond Head Classic, but the other one was just a tournament that they used to have at Hawaii. So we went 2 years back to back. But what's funny about that is they were both around Christmas time. And I was our scout guy at New Orleans. Like I did just about, Monty wasn't huge scouts, but once I started doing them and he started seeing them kind of, help us in certain aspects, we beat LSU 1 year and he was all excited because the scout was right on point. We knew exactly what Brady was going to do. John Brady was the head coach there, John Brady. And he kind of saw the fruit of it. So we started doing it more. I ended up doing most of them. Like that was my thing. So now they weren't as comprehensive as they are now, but I was still watching a ton of videos. So when I went to these Hawaii trips, like when our guys had free time or did catamarans I didn't go. I couldn't. I was preparing for our next opponent, and we were playing, 3 games in 4 days. So, I was in the hotel room. It was nice. Now the windows were open. I had a great view.
VHS stacked on top of each other.
No doubt.
Nice. Yeah.
No doubt.
Yes.
No doubt about it. And that was, I can't tell you the amount of times we would travel with VHS with the VCRs. And I had to go buy new VCRs because they broke in the travel. I'd have to go in a store and buy a VCR. But man, Hawaii was great. I just think that the experience of Hurricane Katrina, you want to talk about, my last year at New Orleans happened in the 1st of September. And what's crazy is everybody on our staff was gone except for me. They were out recruiting or Coach Tao was on a trip in Florida, and I went to physicals that morning on Saturday morning. The night before on a Friday, I got hungry at 11 p.m. and I was going to make that Taco Bell run, I go out and I noticed that the gas stations, I'm a basketball coach. I'm not watching CNN and the local news and all that. If I'm watching news, it's SportsCenter, right? So I go out and all the gas stations either closed or they're backed up. And I'm like, what is going on? What is happening? So I go and click on the Weather Channel and they're like, hey, there's this big hurricane coming right at us.
Wow.
And in New Orleans, most people are like, it never hits. So the next morning we have physicals and I'm like, I go to all the other coaches and they're just like me. I'm like, what are you guys going to do if this hurricane becomes a problem? And they're like, what hurricane? All these other assistants, they don't know anything about it. So an hour later, we're on a phone call with our athletic director. And he's trying to tell everybody, it's a group call, it's a group chat. And he's trying to tell everybody, okay, this is what our plan is. We have buses coming. We have your athletes. If they don't have a way out of town, they need to get on these buses and whatnot.
Wow.
Man, it was crazy. We had 2 kids not get on the bus they were supposed to. And they were ended up being on that bridge outside that you saw all the news. Like 2 of them were on that bridge for a few days. We had no idea if they were alive or dead. It was crazy. And I felt I was the only one there, so I felt responsible. And, but everybody got out of town, and we ended up going to Tyler, Texas for a whole semester.
Wow.
It's probably one of the best recruiting jobs I've ever done. Bo Lester McCaleb was freshman of the year the previous year in the Sun Belt. And when Hurricane Katrina hit, people, like players got a waiver. Like they could leave and go play.
It is now.
Yeah, like it is now.
Pre-portal.
They got a waiver like right away. So our Bo Lester McCaleb was in Houston, and I'll never forget, again, you want to talk about not my job description. I'm in Arizona. I went to Houston for a couple of days with my brother, and then my sister flew me to Arizona. And I'm in Arizona just trying to make sure everybody's okay, get everybody. My boss calls me, and it was like a Thursday or Friday. I can't remember. But he said, we're going to Tyler, Texas as a team. We're going to practice there, live there. We're going to be there all semester. Bo Lester McCaleb is in Houston, and your only job is to get to Houston, get Bo Lester in the car, and be in Tyler, Texas by Tuesday. Well, God rest her soul, Bo Lester McCaleb's mom, who's no longer with us, was with him in Houston. And I'm not kidding when I say Missy Elliott. Spot on. Sweats. The whole deal.
Okay.
Missy Elliott. She got so sick of me in Houston. I flew back to Houston the next morning, Saturday morning, Friday morning, I can't remember. But I'm at their hotel like every day. Like, Bo, you want to go to the mall? Bo, you want to whatever. And they had Oklahoma State, Arkansas, all these schools, I mean, promising them homes, mom a job, cars, the whole deal. And my only job was get Bo Lester to Tyler, Texas. Well, the only thing I had in my defense was Bo was a homebody. He wanted to be in New Orleans. He did not want to leave. And man, I think Tuesday morning, I go pick Bo up. Well, Monday night, I go to the hotel, and I'm standing at the front desk, and I'm trying to get Bo. I'm trying to get a hold of him. And in walks Miss McCaleb. That wasn't her name. I can't remember her name. But she told me if I didn't leave the hotel, she was going to cut me. It's a direct quote.
Not from the team. Cut you.
Yeah. She going to cut me.
Yeah.
She was seeing me. And she was trying to get paid. I don't blame her.
Yeah.
Right.
Messing the money up.
So the next morning I show up, and I'm like, Bo, let me take you to breakfast. All right. We go to IHOP across the street. So we're at IHOP, and I can remember to this day, like we were in one corner and the door was in the opposite corner. And here comes Missy Elliott. And I'm like, it was like the longest 20-second walk of my life. Like it felt like it was 5 minutes. And then she sits down and she doesn't say a word. She doesn't say a word. And then all of a sudden she breaks into this tirade of cursing. Essentially what she was saying was, Bo, is this really what you want to do? Is this really, you want to go to Tyler, Texas and play for the University of New Orleans? And then it was quiet for like a minute and a half. It seemed like it was probably only about 15 seconds. Yeah. And he said, yeah, Mom, that's what I want to do. And I said, all right, we're out. And we went right to the hotel, grabbed his bag, got in my car, and we headed north to Tyler, Texas. And unfortunately, like the 4th game of the year at Mississippi State, Bo Lester fell on his hand and broke his wrist. But Buzz Williams was the next coach at New Orleans after we left, after Katrina. And Bo Lester was really good for Buzz. He ended up going to Marquette eventually and getting that job and doing pretty well. He was only there for a year, but Bo Lester helped him win a lot of games. Joe Pasternak, who's been a Division I coach all over the place, was the next coach. Bo Lester ended up being the all-time leading scorer in the Sun Belt Conference, and I think he is to this point, to this day. We went to Europe, and if you go on YouTube and look up Bo Lester McCaleb and put top guard in Europe, there's a video of him, and it's, he's one of the top 5 guards in Europe. He made millions of dollars playing in Europe. If he was not 6 foot tall and 6'3" or 6'4", he would have played 12 years in the NBA. I mean, just stupid talent. But, there's some guys out there that kind of owe me a little bit of something.
Absolutely.
I was getting cut at a hotel in New Orleans to try to get Bo Lester to come to Tyler, Texas.
You got it done, Coach. You got it done. You found a way, made a way.
When we left at Christmas to come back to New Orleans, I will never forget the eerie bus ride into town with all those guys on a bus. We should not have gone back. We should have stayed in Tyler. But we went back to New Orleans. Our arena was gone. The roof came off and it was flooded inside our arena. I don't think they got back in that arena for like 3 years. But we played in an Ox gym, like a gym on a rec center on campus, and to see those kids driving through that, it looked like a nuclear bomb had gone off. It was, you talk about just, and then we had to live in it. Or I had to live in it for like 5 months. And, restaurants weren't open. And if they were, they closed at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock because they didn't have enough staff to run them. Didn't have enough food because when they were open, the lines were crazy. The grocery stores were closed. Most people's refrigerators were gone. I mean, it was awful. It was awful for 5 months. And that's when I just had decided, man, it's time for me to go do something else.
Coach, you have lately at the highest level answered, oops, took me there. Oops, took me here. There. Back. So Hawaii, New Orleans at the time. Katrina. Well.
And
that's going to be a marquee one.
And Coach Key, we were on the staff at A&T together when we played Tulane. Is that correct? Okay. You were with us. And
yes.
We play, it was in 2006, I believe.
Okay.
We're playing there, and head coach says, we're staying downtown. And he says, how far out of the way is the Ninth Ward? And he says, the bus driver says about 20 minutes. And he's like, you know what? Like, forget practice. Like, I want to see this.
Yeah.
And bus driver took us down there, saw where the levees broke, and it was a sobering experience just driving through that area, seeing the houses marked up, for, when exactly. With all that was still up there and very. So that was definitely an interesting experience. So having to live through that.
What was crazy is when the sun went down, there were no street lights. I mean, it was dark, and that itself was just really, really eerie every night. So sobering for sure. I would meet every team for their Friday night practices or their Wednesday night practices. Our rec center, when they came in. And I just remember those kids on the opposing teams getting off the bus, driving through Franklin Avenue, and just like, wow, just what they were seeing. It's just, you can't believe it.
Yeah. So we're going to move on to something more positive.
Yeah, let's do it.
So we're going to go into our top 5 influential coaches throughout your coaching career.
Yeah, I'd say the first one, obviously, is my high school coach, Dennis Kearns. Man, the first person that really saw in me somebody that could be pretty good. He just retired. He retired about 8 or 9 years ago from coaching, but or from teaching and coaching, but then he stayed on as an assistant high school coach at Morgantown High in Morgantown, West Virginia. So his wife hit me about 3 weeks before the season was over and says, hey, coach has decided to hang it up. He's not going to coach anymore. We're going to have a big celebration for him on the last game of the regular season. Can you make it? And we played our last game on a Saturday night here in Arkansas, and the game was Monday night. So, I left our last game and drove to West Virginia Saturday and finished it on Sunday, and went to his deal on Monday night. And man, it was awesome. It was just great to be there for him. And he's the first person that ever really saw anything in me and made me work, taught me how to work, was just there. And, I got a note from him after the deal and said how surprised he was and what an honor it was for him to see me and what it meant to him. And he just said, and one of the greatest notes I've ever gotten, he just said, hey, I coached you 35 years ago. And ever since you played for me, you were the standard. You were the standard. The way you worked, the way you outworked everybody in the room, man, to get that letter from him, just, and it is funny, like when I would go back and see him and I would be around his players, they were like, oh, that's you, so he said he would do that. He would hold those kids to the standard from when I played for him. So that was awesome. Coach DeFruzio and Coach White, my college coaches.
Okay.
I hated Coach DeFruzio. I hated him when I played for him. I hated him. I tell my players all the time, like, you can't use the word anymore, that infamous P word. He probably hit me with that thing about 10 times a day. And
HR back then.
I was. I thought I kind of had arrived and thought I was a player, and I led the state of West Virginia in scoring as a senior in high school. And, I just wasn't a great athlete. And, I came there to play. I actually had offers to walk on at Notre Dame, at Cincinnati, and with Coach Huggins. He was a Morgantown guy, and they were on probation at the time with Nick Van Exel and all those guys. And they needed guys like me to come walk on because they only had 9 scholarships at the time. They ended up going to the Final Four 2 years later, which, sometimes you talk about regret. Sometimes you look back. But, I went to Division II to play. And I get there and I realized I wasn't that good. I wasn't very tough.
We all been there.
Yeah, I wasn't that tough. And, we had a kid on our team named Dave Ely, and that dude was he was a 2-guard. He was, if you guys are, especially Northeast guys. So we went to play St. Joe's in Philly my sophomore year, and they had Rap Curry and Bernard Blunt at the time. 2 guys that went on to play in the league, and you get in the magazines, they were top 5 backcourt in the country. Ely gave them 37, and we got beat by like 20, but Dave Ely gave them 37. I think I had 7. We had some dudes, we had some players, and unfortunately, right after that happened, Dave got in a fight that night in Philly in a bar. He went out. He wasn't supposed to be out. He went out and he got caught. And then we got back and we had practice on Friday after Thanksgiving, and he had gone out again and gotten another fight. He got kicked off the team. Wow. So all of a sudden, Mark Downey was starting at the 2 for that year. And I wasn't Dave Ely, I'll tell you that. But DeFrizio kind of toughened me up. He kind of taught me what it was to have some toughness about me, to have an edge about me. And I ended up leaving there and going to University of Charleston more for financial reasons and kind of school reasons. Coach White, just to get the opportunities that he gave me, I didn't have as good a success at Charleston as I did at Wheeling. That year that Dave Ely got kicked off, I ended up averaging 17 a game and was all conference that year, and I think 111 threes or something like that. But I never had that success again at Charleston. But what Coach taught me and the confidence that he had in me and what he saw in me to get into coaching basketball, he had a huge influence on me. And then obviously I talked about it, Dave Davis at Barton College. My first job, I walked into the office the first day of work, and I still do this with my guys that I hire now. He sat me down and he said, "Hey, before we get started," probably the most profound thing anybody did for me, it was the first 5 minutes of my coaching career. He said, "Before we get started, I want you to know one thing. If you are going to get into this business for something other than the 15 guys that are sitting in that locker room right now, then go do something else. If you're here for fame, if you're here for money, if you're here for winning," he said, "if you're here for any of those things, go do something else, because this is not the profession for you." And one of the most influential things anybody ever said to me, and it occurred in the first 5 minutes of my career. So
still
Dave
sticks with you.
Yeah, no doubt.
That's profound.
And then, Chris Jans, I guess you would say too, just, even though that was one of the hardest parts of my coaching career, I forgave him very quickly. I think one of the things that was hard in my marriage is that my wife didn't. She didn't forgive Chris because, who knows? They hired Chris Beard at Little Rock, but at the time, Chris Beard was just a Division II coach. He was coming from Angelo State, and he had some success, but my resume looked just as good as Chris Beard's. I had Bobby Huggins and Frank Martin and people like that calling for me. He had Bobby Knight because he had been at Texas Tech, but I was pretty connected to that job. So they obviously made the right hire. But who knows? Who knows what would have happened if we didn't get fired?
Right.
I could have been the next head coach at Bowling Green, 3 or 4 years later. But again, don't live in regret and don't hold anything against Chris Jans. As a matter of fact, man, I'm proud of what he's done.
Absolutely.
He changed. Just a good friend and a great coach. I get emotional about it, but forgave him right away. Didn't ever hold anything against him. Never. But the best basketball coach that I've ever been around, Chris Jans. No doubt about it. Other people, you talk about, those are 5 there probably, but, just people that mentored me, Matt Painter and Bobby Huggins, those guys, they didn't owe me anything.
Yeah.
Right.
And those guys, they make calls for me, just put me in positions to get jobs all the time.
Some good guys to have in your corner.
Yeah, advice, just, those people meant a lot to me. So, the actual guys that and then there's some other people that were pretty big influences in me that aren't coaches, but are for me. But, those people, coaching-wise, were the guys that gave me my shots and then helped me climb the ladder, so to speak.
Great 5, Coach. I tell you what.
Yeah.
Top of the food chain. So our last segment, a great job was taking us through your journey. I learned so much tonight, this evening, but our last one, going back to your assistant coach's days, and you've kind of already covered some. Final story, we call it Remember the Times. and just a funny story behind the scenes. If it's a scout you overlooked, if you messed up practice, we have that. And it could be a story. Last week, Coach Bollwage had a story that was, for example, he worked for a guy who threw his false teeth away and had to help him find it. So I got fired in Las Vegas, the gym in front of God and everybody because the AAU game was scheduled changed and my head coach didn't know. So your version, remember the times, Coach, whatever you see fit, look forward to hearing it.
Well, I've probably got a couple of them.
That's fine.
The first one was as a head coach, and I'm thankful for the grace that my AD showed me. My second year, we were super talented. Terrence Whiters was on our team. We had Darren Tarver on our team that was the National Junior College Player of the Year. He actually went to George Mason and died on the court. But him and his twin brother were best friends with LeBron. And LeBron was just, he was young in his career and the kid actually, I'm getting off track, but the kid went to Mayo Clinic in Cleveland and he got cleared to play again 2 or 3 years later. And somehow we got him at Tech and, he was on our team and we were talented that year. It was one of the most talented teams I've ever had. They all didn't make it to the end of the year. But that year we had a game at UMKC and Matt Brown was the head coach. Kareem Richardson was on that staff. I knew their whole staff. I'd been the head coach at UMKC and like I said, was on the NC State staff that went to the Final Four a couple years ago. But we're playing them, and it was 1990. No. Kansas was really good in football. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And Missouri was really good in football. They were like 1-2 in the country, and they were playing that night at Arrowhead, and we're playing in the afternoon at Municipal Auditorium in Kansas City against UMKC. We come out kicking their tail. I mean, we're kicking their tail. And we had talked about all week in practice that, man, we're going up there to play a Division I game. We can beat them, but they're not going to let us. Referees are going to not let us.
Right.
So, I'm somewhat emotional when it comes to referees. I always have been. I've calmed down a little bit. But back then, it was one of my first 4-year jobs. And I was trying to, it was me against the world, like always. So that day, I knew what was going to happen. I'd prepared myself. There was a call that should have gone our way, and they're trying to make a little run. We're up like 13 in the first half. They're trying to make a little run, and we get fouled at the rim. It's not called. Or no. Yeah. The ball comes down. We rebounded. It's going the other way, and the referee's running by me, and I just said, hey, man, we got to get that call right. Last possession. It was a foul. About all I said. And he turned around, and I told you about the football game because no one wanted to be in Municipal Auditorium that day. They wanted to be out and ready for that football game.
Yeah.
Including the refs. I really think the refs did too. And they knew we were the D2 team. So he ran by me. He turned around and boop right away. And I'm like, all right, okay, I get it. And then, I said that to him. I said, I got it. D2 guy, you don't want to hear from me. I get it. So let it be. Didn't say anything else. So they make a run and cut it to like 6. And we're in the under 4 media timeout. And the last thing I say to my guys is, we've talked about it all week. I said, hold your ground the last 4 minutes of this half. Hold your ground. You knew from the get-go that this was going to be 8-on-5. Well, right before I said that, the referee had come over. The same guy had come over to give us the first horn warning. First horn. We're literally standing up. And I'm like, you knew this was going to happen. You knew it was going to be 8-on-5. And he was standing right beside our huddle. We break out of the huddle, throws me, kicks me out of the game.
Wow.
Well, then I had nothing to lose. So then I went, I went off. Like, are you kidding me? You're kicking me out of this game for those 2 things? Like, I didn't deserve any of them.
Right.
So anyways, I get escorted back to the locker room. Back, there wasn't any streaming of the game. It wasn't being streamed even in the arena. So we go on a run and go up 13 at half. So I remember I'm listening and my wife's on the phone. We were dating at the time, but she's on the cell phone telling me what's going on.
Right.
And we go up 13 and I'm sitting in the locker room just, hanging out. So then I meet my guys running in the tunnel and we're like chest bumping and, we're up 13 at half. So we go in there and we talk and, my assistant's doing a good job with the game. And so then about 15 minutes left in the game, I'm like, man, I cannot sit in my locker room and not watch this. Like, if we're going to beat these guys, I want to watch it. I want to see it. So Municipal Auditorium is huge. So I go up in the very top and there's stairs up to the tunnel and it kind of goes up to the tunnel. And then, so I sit on the stairs to where, I can see like this. in the upper deck. On the way up there, I had taken off everything and just put on my sweats. And I guess on the way up there, I walked by some guy that had floor seats, like in the concourse, walked by him. So they're making a run again with about 6 minutes to go in the game, and we're still up pretty, 9 or 10. And all of a sudden, I see we're taking the ball out of bounds, and the referee's about to hand the ball to our team or one of my guys, and he pulls the ball back. And the guy, my player turns around. He has no idea where I'm at, but he turns around and he's going doesn't have any idea where I'm at. Nobody can see me. Well, the guy in the floor seats, because my player told me this, the ball's out right in front of him. The guy in the floor seat says, "Hey, man, the coach you kicked out is sitting up there in the bleachers watching the game." The referee, you can see it on tape. The referee doesn't even look for me. He turns around, goes to the scores table, tees me up for a third time, and has security go find me and escort me out of the building. So they make all their free throws. Back then, you get the ball back. They end the ball and hit a three. So now they were making a run. They probably got and they got it close, and then they beat us late in the game. And I got teed up 3 times. I was walking back to the locker room, and I get a call from my AD going, he literally said, "What the F?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" Because I didn't know they had teed me up for the third time.
Time.
Walking back, I just knew something was wrong. So I'm walking back, and he's like, "What the F is going on?" And I was like, "I have no idea. I'm walking around the arena." And he goes, "You just got teed up again." I said, "What?" He goes, "I don't know. A radio guy just said you got teed up a third time." Had no idea.
3 tees. That's a first. Yeah, that's a first.
I come back and have to meet with my AD, and then they want me to meet with the commissioner of the league. And, I got 3 tees in a game. I guess the whole staff at UMKC had called my boss and said he didn't deserve any of them. His team should have won the game. They got screwed, and the grace that my boss gave me to continue having a job, but to go on and do what we did in the next couple years. That was a crazy story. I remember one with Jans. We were playing Dayton. It was our only bye game of the year. Man, when you did the scout for Chris Jans, you better be on it. It better be. So anyways, there was a play that they ran, and they entered it to the wing, and I can't remember ball side or weak side. I can't remember, but I had him cutting through weak side. I had just watched it on video. Well, Jans remembers the play, even though it was my scout. He remembers looking at my video that the kid cut weak side, and it could have been opposite. I can't remember. But I'm like, "Coach, I just watched it. I literally just watched it 10 minutes ago. I watched it.
I'm on it.
I'm going to pay attention to detail because I know what's going to happen if you don't, if I don't." 2 seconds later, we go to a break. We come back out, and he had sent the film guy to go get his computer. So he's got the computer on the court, and he comes over and goes, look at this. And he had 2 clips of where he went weak side. And I'm like, "Coach, I don't know what to tell you." But he's me out in front of the whole team. And what gets worse, so I had the clip, and I don't know if the kid just screwed up. I don't know if their point guard just screwed up.
Right. Ran it wrong.
I got the clip and went back in his office. I said, "Coach, this is the clip I just looked at before practice. Right here." I said, "This is it." And he goes, "I don't care. He screwed up. He should, And I'm like, "Okay, Coach, whatever." So then we lose the game, last possession of the game. It's one of those games where, they're paying us $95,000 to come to Dayton. The place is packed. Yeah. And we lose literally on the last possession of the game. Well, with 3.5 minutes to go, they're running a blob out of bounds, a baseline out of bounds. And it's my scout, but it's on the other end because it's in the second half, and it's loud as can be. And I see something that triggers a lob. So I stand up as it's happening, and I'm like, "Chuck the cutter, it's a lob!" I'm screaming as loud as I possibly can. And what happens? They throw it. And again, it seems like the ball's in the air for 20 seconds.
Yeah.
And they go up and bang! And Jans turns around and looks at me, and he's like, "Little late, wasn't it?" And I'm like, but they couldn't even hear me. They couldn't even hear me.
In there.
Yeah, they were. It was so loud. They couldn't hear me. And
feel helpless.
We lose on the last possession of the game.
You saw the play coming.
Out, I screwed up one of their plays. Not that it really hurt us, but then the lob play, I felt like I was late. And I can remember Jans walking into the locker, and he kicked the door into the locker room. And I just felt like he was really kicking me. That's how I took it, but anyway, much props when we did. There were games that we won. We won in overtime against Central Michigan, and we beat Detroit on the home run play that we had kind of tweaked, and I had tweaked a part of it. And he always gave me props when things went well, but I just felt like that night
kicked you.
Yeah, I felt like he just kicked me right in the chest.
You brought the
Walked into
TV
the
out.
locker room. Yeah, because we lost by 2. We lost on the last possession of the game, and
Man.
that hurt me all year. So, yeah, those 2 times, I mean, I've done dumb stuff too. I remember it was my scout, and we were leaving to go somewhere. We were flying out of Indianapolis at Fort Wayne, and when I was leaving the house, I had my backpack on the bed, and I didn't zip it all the way. So I picked my backpack up, put it on, and I kind of even noticed that it was a little bit light. But the backpack, my computer just slid right out of it and was laying on the bed. And we are on the bus going to Indianapolis, and we hadn't left town yet, which is great. But I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't have my laptop.
Need that.
I need it. And it was snowing. There was so much snow on the ground. I can remember thinking I was going to die trying to drive back to my house, which was like 10 miles away. The roads were, I can't tell you how many lights I skidded through that day trying to get back. I told him, I said, Coach,
Anxiety.
take the bus, go. I will go to my house and drive to Indianapolis and park my car there while we're gone. Like, just go. I'll meet you there. And we made it too. But just stuff like that, man.
I love it, Coach. You hit it on the head. Thank you. Remember those times. I see as you had one story come back to you, kind of recall 2 and 3. We've all been there. Thank you so much for sharing
30-something years, man. It's a lot of them.
And
30-some years.
Yes. Coach, we greatly appreciate you coming on.
Yeah,
tremendous
awesome.
stories, tremendous journey. And Coach, any last words?
So you took us from down in between and really talked about the essence of journeys, relationships, haul trucks, almost getting a job this close to going to a different direction, family affected, which is affected. So you're a prototype. We talk about life on the road and the journey behind the scenes. But no, I enjoyed it. I'll go back and laugh some more, but appreciate you sharing the intimate details of the other side of the business, the disappointments, heartbreaks, that is all part of it.
Just to leave you, and this maybe should have been the first thing I talk about, since I went through a divorce, coming back to Arkansas and going through a divorce, and I don't want to make it about that, but what has happened in my journey, and I've come back to Christ through the whole thing. I went to 14 years of Catholic school growing up, so I was always a believer, but I didn't know what having a relationship with Christ was until I went through a divorce. And as I look back on all those things, Katrina, I've dealt with some health issues, the setbacks, the being fired, the not getting the job. God has blessed me in every one of those situations to make it a positive and make it a blessing.
Absolutely.
And that's what I'm most grateful for. That's why I don't live in regret. That's why I am okay to be a Division II head coach, because you're still trying to make an impact. And like Coach said, if I'm doing it for anything other than those 15 guys sitting in that locker room, I'm in the wrong business. So that's what it's all about, impacting those lives. So
absolutely.
I'm very grateful and blessed to the journey I've had, even though it's been very up and down.
Purposeful.
No doubt.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you guys for letting me tell the story.
And that is a great way to end it. So until next time,
keep it on the road.
And keep it between the lines.
Now that's another stop on the journey, but the road doesn't end here. New stories, new coaches, same game. This is Life on the Road, a coach's journey. Make sure you subscribe, follow, and share with someone in the game.